Good morning all and welcome to today's lesson, which sees the 7th lesson of Unit 906, which is all on ratio. So today's learning objective is to know how to work between two ratios. Please make sure that's written down. On the board you have your 6 knowledge retrieval questions. Please pause the video here for 10 minutes and work through those 6 questions. I'll give you the answers in a moment, so please make sure you've got a green pen ready as well. And here are your answers to those 6 knowledge retrieval questions. Please pause the video here while you mark in green pen. Make sure to correct any mistakes if you've made any at all. Okay, so for the first I do and we do pair of the lesson, and we said we'll be working between two ratios today. So example 1 says you have two ratios, A to B and B to C. Form the ratios A to B to C. So look at the first I do. It's 5 to 6 and 7 to 4. The important thing to spot is that if we look at the question A to B and B to C, so the second number of the first ratio and the first number of the second ratio are both B. They're both represented by B. So 6 in this first ratio represents B and 7 in this second ratio represents B. So we need to get those two, both 6 and 7, to a common number so then we can compare A and C. So we need to get 6 and 7 to a common number. So you could choose a common multiple or the lowest common multiple, but probably the easiest thing to do is to multiply all of this ratio by 6 and all of this ratio by 7. And you'll see why in a moment. So let's multiply all of the first ratio by 7. So 5 times 7 gives 35. 6 times 7 gives 42. So the first ratio is now 35 to 42. And if we do the second one, we do 7 times 6, which is 42. So we have these two to a common number now. They are both 42, meaning we can combine and compare A and C. So 7 times 6 equals 42 as well, and then 4 times 6 gives me 24. So we can rewrite this now, because we've got B to a common element, which is 42, we can compare A and C. So when B is 42, A was 35 and C was 24. So our ratio is 35 to 42 to 24. And then simplify this if you can, which in this case we cannot. So just to repeat that again, first ratio you want to multiply by this 7, so multiply 5 by 7 and 6 by 7. And then second ratio you want to multiply this by 6, so 7 times 6 and 4 times 6. Then we can compare them. Please pause the video here, copy that down, and then do the next one for me, please. Okay, so 5 to 3 and 7 to 4. Remember that in the first ratio, this 3 represents B, and in the second ratio, this 7 represents B. And we need to get these two to a common number, a common multiple, so we can compare A and C. So if we multiply the first ratio all by 7, we get 5 times 7 equals 35. 3 times 7 equals 21. So the first ratio is now changed to 35 to 21. And now if we multiply this all by 3, so we can get this B to 21 and therefore compare A and C. So 7 times 3 equals 21 and 4 times 3 equals 12. And now we can compare them, 35 to 21 to 12. And then again, just check you can't simplify this. If you got that right, you did really well, so really good work. Please be ready to move on to the next I do and we do. Okay, so this time we've got 5 to 3 and 9 to 4. Remembering that the 3 in this first ratio represents B, and the 9 in this second ratio represents B. So we need to get 3 and 9 both to a common multiple, so then we can compare A and C. And again, we could multiply this first one by 9, all of this by 9, and then multiply all of this by 3. But this one's a bit easier because this time 9 is already a common multiple of 9 and 3. So all we're going to do is multiply the first ratio by 3. I'll show you why we do that in a minute. So 5 times 3 equals 15. 3 times 3 equals 9. So this ratio is 15 to 9. Then that makes both the b's the same number, so we can compare the a and the c. So this ratio becomes 15 to 9 to 4. Please pause the video there, copy that down, and then try for me the WeDo, please. Please pause the video here while you do that. Okay, so for this one, again, 18 represents B and 9 represents B. And you'll notice that 18 and 9, from both of these, 18 is the lowest common multiple of these two. So 5 times 18 we're going to leave untouched because we've already got B as 18 like we want it. But then we're going to double this ratio. So B can be 18 and therefore we can compare this C with this A. So 9 times 2 gives 18 on the second ratio, and 4 times 2 gives 8. So if we read this ratio off, it's 5 to 18 to 8. Please mark that in green pen, and really well done if you got that right. Okay, so final example, 5 to 18 and 6 to 4. Remember that this 18 represents B, and this 6 represents B. So we need to get those two to a common multiple. And 18 and 6, lowest common multiple is 18. So this one's already at 18, so I can leave this ratio untouched. But then I need to make this ratio with an 18 in place of this 6, so then I can compare the A and the C. So I'm just going to multiply the first ratio by 1, because that's absolutely fine. So 5 to 18, that stays as. The second ratio, I need to make this 6 to an 18. So I'm going to multiply that by 3, and I also need to multiply the 4 by 3. So 6 times 3 equals 18, and then 4 times 3 equals 12. And if we read this ratio off, it's 5 to 18 to 12. Please pause the video there while you copy that down. And then, a couple of minutes, try the WeDo by yourselves. Okay, so for the WeDo, we've got 5 to 12 and 6 to 4. And again, recognizing that these two inner numbers are both B, we can compare them, and we find the lowest common multiple of 6 and 12, which is 12. So we leave this first ratio alone. We just need to double this second ratio. So 6 times 2 equals 12, so these two are now comparable, they're the same number. And 4 times 2 equals 8, so the ratio is 5 to 12 to 8. Please mark that in green pen, and again, really well done if you got that right. Okay, so question 1 says, below you have two ratios, A to B and B to C. Form the ratio A to B to C. So pause the video here, there's 10 questions, I reckon about 10 minutes, and you can work through those 10. I'll give the answers in a moment, so make sure you work your hardest through this and have a green pen ready. And there are your 10 answers, so please pause the video here while you mark those answers. Okay, so here we're going to move on to some different examples of this working between two ratios. So this is effectively part 2 of working between two ratios. And these are going to be challenging questions, so I'm going to go through one example and then I'll give you a bit of time to practice some questions by yourself. So the first I do says, the ratio of the perimeter of a square to the length of a rectangle is 6 to 5. It says the ratio of the length of the rectangle to the width of the rectangle is 2 to 3. So we need to remember that, okay? So perimeter of a square to length of a rectangle, 6 to 5. Ratio of the length of the rectangle to the width of the rectangle, 2 to 3. It says the perimeter of a rectangle is 50 centimeters. Find the area of the square. So what I'm going to do, I'm saying the perimeter of the rectangle is 50 centimeters. That's what it tells me. So if you imagine a rectangle, it's 2 widths and 2 lengths. So if I halve the perimeter, that gives me 1 length and 1 width of the rectangle, which equals 25 centimeters. 50 divided by 2 equals 25. So the whole perimeter of the rectangle is 50, so one length and one width of the rectangle is 25. The reason I've done that is because it says earlier in the question, the ratio of the length of the rectangle to the width of the rectangle is 2 to 3. Well, now I know one length plus one width equals 25, so I can find out the length and the width by splitting 25 in the ratio 2 to 3. That gives me 10 to 15. So length of the rectangle to width of the rectangle was 2 to 3. So this 10 represents the length of the rectangle. So the length of the rectangle is 10 centimeters. So if the length of the rectangle is 10 centimeters, I go back to the first ratio where it says the ratio of the perimeter of the square to the length of a rectangle is 6 to 5. So perimeter of a square to length of the rectangle is 6 to 5. I know the length of the rectangle is 10 centimeters. So if the length is 10, double 5, the perimeter of the square is going to be double 6, which is 12 centimeters. So perimeter of a square is 12. Remember that all sides of a square are equal. So to find a length of a square, I do 12 divided by 4, which equals 3. And then to find the area, I'm just going to do 3 times 3, or 3 squared, which equals 9 centimeters squared. Please pause the video here, copy that down, and again, like I said, these are challenging. Make sure you've got this copied down, and then when you do the redo, pause the video and use the worked example step by step to get through this question. I'll be really impressed if you can get this right. Okay, so it says ratio of a perimeter of a square to length of a rectangle is 8 to 7. The ratio of the length to the width of the rectangle is 2 to 3. The perimeter of the rectangle is 70 centimeters. So if the perimeter of the rectangle is 70, sorry, this should say 70 at the top there, half of the perimeter, one length plus one width, will be 70 divided by 2, 35 centimeters. So one length and one width of that rectangle equals 35. Now we can split 35 in the ratio 2 to 3 because that's the ratio of the length to the width of the rectangle. So 35 split in the ratio 2 to 3 gives me 14 to 21. So the length of the rectangle is represented by this first part of the ratio, 14. Perimeter of the square to length of the rectangle was 8 to 7, that's what the question said. So if the length of the rectangle is 14, double 7, the perimeter of the square is going to be double 8, which is 16. Perimeter of the square equals 16, therefore the length of the square is 16 divided by 4, which equals 4 centimeters, because all lengths of the square are the same, so all four sides are the same, so we can do this. So if the length of the square is 4, the area of the square is 4 times 4, or 4 squared, which equals 16. You've done absolutely brilliantly if you got that right. Really well done. Okay, so I'm just going to finish the lesson with these 3 questions. So please pause the video here and allow yourself as much time as necessary to work through those 3. Okay, and there are your answers. So please pause the video here while you mark those. Thank you for listening today, and I'll see you again in the next lesson. Bye-bye.